Matthew's in the house. What's going on, Matthew?
How's it going, Anthony?
It's good. It's good. You look like a rock star.
Oh, thank you. You look great too, man.
Thank you. Well, it's that new dad glow.
Yes.
Um,
Congratulations.
Speaking of glow, why don't you share with us why you're glowing right now? What school are you going to, and what are you studying this fall?
So, it's crazy to say, but I will be going to Juilliard in the fall to get my master's in acting, and it's just a real dream come true. Um,
It's so
I,
awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you so much.
I know
Yeah.
you work so hard. I've known you for actually a couple of years now. We've spoken. And you ended up getting our coaching this year, but you've gone through such a journey, even like, you know, just figuring out how you wanted to proceed, right? You, when I first met you, and still you're a musician at heart,
Mm-hmm.
right? Tell us a little bit about that and how that kind of uh, desire for acting training came about.
Yeah, I guess maybe it'd be helpful then just to talk through like where this desire came from in the first place, like all the way
Yeah,
at the beginning. Would
yeah,
that be
yeah,
helpful?
please.
Okay. I mean, I think I've always known that I wanted to be an actor and an artist. Like you were saying, my experience is definitely more so in the music. I started out in music and in the performing arts that way. Um, but somewhere along the way, I mean, this is a longer story, but I realized that it was more acting and film and theater that really interested me the most. I think even from like a long term perspective, it's just what I gravitate towards more. And but I grew up to two immigrant parents who, I mean, my family just didn't come from that kind of background whatsoever. And so I
Hmm.
think that I didn't really think it was a possible career that was available to me, even though throughout um, middle school, high school, I was very much involved in the performing arts. I didn't really see it as a possibility. And so when it came time to apply to college, I applied as like a STEM major. That's what I thought
Hmm.
I was going to go into. But
And you
thankfully,
graduated, right? Your bachelor's is in a non-acting field,
it's in a
if I'm correct.
non-acting field. Yes,
Yeah.
it's completely separate from acting. But during college, my my main extracurriculars and like my internships were all still within the creative arts. It just took some time for me to really come to terms with like, no, this is what I want to do. I'm going to step into this path and really own that, I would say.
I'm sure your parents were happy that you just got the degree out of the way.
Oh
You
yeah,
know,
yeah, for sure.
and then if you want to go for your master's, you want to go back and you want to keep exploring, your arts passions. Um, that's sometimes what happens. And it's really cool because master's students, they're choosing to come back to school.
Right.
And typically there's something that they're bringing to the table that's unique. It's not just an actor. They're
Hmm.
they're hopefully, and I know some schools talk about this as what they look for in MFA students is what else are you bringing to the table? But clearly you had a diverse background and you found your way, but that acting bug was always in you, the performing arts bug was always in you. Now you're really getting to let it flourish, right? Does that feel
Yeah,
about right?
I would say that feels right. I think that I used to see it as, I don't know if this is the exact right word, but maybe a weakness that I didn't start earlier. And I now see it as a real strength and superpower that I can bring to my work of like, oh, I lived a completely separate life and I'm bringing all of that richness into the work that I have now.
Hmm.
Um, it's not the path for everyone, but it's
Yeah, exactly.
for me, right?
And it's great that you have embraced your path. And that's what I think is a super important thing. I remember thinking at the same time when I was younger, oh, so and so got into this school, when I was watching upperclassmen get into their schools, I was like, but he's so textured and he's so scarred and he's got that whole, like, you know what I'm saying? I don't really have all that damage, you know,
Yeah.
and all that. But
Yeah,
seriously, whatever your reality is, like the work and the task is still the same.
totally.
Get to bring who you naturally are to the work and find like your imagination in the material, your humor, your intelligence. And sometimes we just block ourselves from doing that because we want to be someone else or we want to have a different background when
Mhm.
really like the more you just obviously embrace. All right, we're not going to get off on a we're here to talk about the audition, but I think you made a good point. I wanted to
Yes.
stamp it.
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
Let's talk about monologues, shall we?
Yeah.
I remember you needed to feel that your monologues were strong for you, that you felt a connection to them. Do you remember when you were searching for monologues and what you were looking for?
Yeah, I think just from the coaching, I knew that two of my pieces would have to be Shakespeare and two would be more contemporary. I think for my specific process, I didn't have a lot of experience with Shakespeare whatsoever. And so um, I knew that, I mean, even before like diving into what those monologues might be, I, I'm I'm here in New York, so I'm in all kinds of different classes as well, including a scene study class. And I think even so many months before, I brought Shakespeare to that class because I knew I wanted to be more comfortable with it going into the audition season, just because I was
Yeah.
coming from ground zero, you know. Um,
You were kind of attacking it with that foresight of, I know I'm going to have to work on this in auditions, like let's dive in now.
Yes, yes. And I think that, I mean, maybe that's part of what it means to come back to school, like what you were saying, because I was really thinking about things on a very sort of long-term horizon,
Hmm.
even a year out of like, okay, when am I gonna want to start thinking about like these different parts of the process? So in terms of to answer your question directly of like when I was starting to search, man, it's a little hard to remember now. I'm gonna be honest, but I think around September.
Yeah.
September is when I was really diving into like looking through different plays, seeing what resonated with me. Um, yeah, I would say that sounds right.
Yeah, that makes sense. And look, we all have different access levels. Like you had past work that you could have looked at. You were always thinking about it, but you're saying that when you kind of really dove in to like start reading a lot of material, September was that time frame. Did you go to like libraries, bookstores, drama bookshop in New York? Like where did you go when you were like, all right, today I want to see how many more monologues I can find?
Totally. It was a combination of a bunch of different things. I used the list of really sort of excellent playwrights that you guys provided, and uh, went and spent a lot of time at the New York Performing Arts Library, just looking through plays, and um, I wasn't necessarily like reading them from front uh, from
Right.
cover to
You
end or
want to read the
whatever.
whole play. Who's got time?
No, 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 no. I was just really trying to hone in on uh, the walls of text with for certain characters and to see like whether or not there was something there that I could really relate to. And if
Hmm.
there was, that's when I decided like, okay, I'm gonna read this. I'm gonna check this book out and read it in its entirety to see if it's something that I really want to work on.
Nice.
And
Nice.
then beyond that, I mean, also honestly, just like best monologues for young men, like that kind of thing. So
However you can find it, right? We have a lot of different online resources, in-person resources, depending on where you live. So it sounds what I'm hearing, as a through line through all these like experiences you've shared so far is like you've just taken advantage of opportunities to go full out, right? If you think about if Matthew is thinking about auditioning for drama school, guess what he's doing? He's getting into scene study class and attacking some Shakespeare as a prep before his actual coaching. If he's thinking
totally.
about monologues, guess what he's doing? He's not just going to one bookstore one day.
Mhm.
He's going to the bookstore multiple times. He's researching online. Like you're really pouring it on if it's something that's meaningful to you, is what I'm hearing.
Yeah, that definitely resonates with me. And I would also say that I think my entire approach to grad school auditions was um, I mean, I guess we could get into it as well, but I only auditioned for a couple of schools because I really wanted to make sure that I was truly excited about spending the next 3 or 4 years in a place. Um, and something that John, one of the other coaches, one of the pieces of advice that he gave me was like, especially for master's students, I would say, to view the audition process as just another point along this journey of the end goal of becoming the best actor and the best artist I can be, right? It's
Hmm.
the end goal isn't to get into necessarily like one of these programs and then boom, I'm done. The end goal is to become the best possible artist I know I can be. And so I think that in all of this preparation, being in scene study class, being whatever, I was trying to. The end goal was to unleash my potential rather than like
Hmm.
I need to get into this school or else I'm not an actor. You know.
Such a great distinction. Yeah. And that's something that the schools can sniff too, where it's like, okay, this person is working. This is just a person who's in momentum in their artistic growth.
Yes.
And if we choose to be a part of their journey, cool. But regardless, they're going to keep growing, you know? And so, as opposed to someone who's just kind of like on their heels, being like, look at what I've got. Like, are you going to help me grow? You know, we want people who are walking, we not we but schools want people who are walking into the room already like trying to attack their weaknesses, trying to explore their instrument and willing to play, and which you clearly showed. So why don't we talk about it? um well, the school list also I do want to touch on, because you mentioned that you only did a few schools,
Mm-hmm.
and I like your criteria of which schools go on my list is, would I be stoked to go?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
You know? And so tell us about the schools that were on your list, if you don't mind listing them, and why you would be stoked to go to those schools.
Yeah. I auditioned for both Yale and Juilliard. I think just because they're regarded as, you know, a couple of the best drama schools in the world. Looking at their alumni, I really admire all the artists, a lot of the artists that come out of their programs. I also knew, I mean, as a master's student, a real big draw for me was the fact that they were tuition free. And I think that I really wanted to think about uh, 3 to 4 years of my life in a place where the training is all consuming, right? Um, I really wanted to make sure that I was truly excited to learn and grow at said place. Um, and at the end of the day, those were the programs that really interested me. Yeah.
Okay, very cool. Very cool. So now you're approaching the actual audition. It's September, you're reading more monologues, you're finding pieces that you really like. Um, how did you kind of get certain pieces on their feet? Because I assume you found something you liked, but you didn't necessarily have all of your monologues picked out at the time. Did you like get some of them on your feet while you were still reading? You know, like how did the getting the monologues up and ready for coaching go?
Yeah, I think it was very much that actually. I was relatively sure about a couple early on, and so I started working on those while still reading and vetting material. I was reading pretty much until the end. You know, I although that
I'm thumbs upping. Yes,
I mean, you gave me that advice in the very beginning
absolutely.
as well, so I got to give you some credit. But it I only ended up performing four of the monologues, so I did use all of them, but I had five, and I if I could do it again, I'd honestly go in with six just to because I mean we're in the business of wanting to become the best artists possible. You know, it's not like I've learned the four and now my job is done.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, so I was constantly reading, seeing, learning more about playwrights and plays because it still is relatively um, uh, new for me. I would say that this world and
It's a big one. There, you can always get
very big
more
one.
familiar with more plays, more great playwrights. Yeah, and
Yeah,
you will.
and I think to add to that point, like even now, knowing that I'm going to school, like I definitely I want to keep reading and I want to keep consuming great art for the rest of my life. So,
Well, it's no wonder that you know your head is obviously in the right place, obviously, and so that allows you to go deeper with the work. If you've got this passionate mindset, this willingness to go deep, like that's going to result in having productive coaching sessions and even in your own rehearsals, having personal discoveries and letting the pieces marinate on their own. So talk to us about your process. What was your philosophy in terms of like how you're going to go about working on these pieces? I know coaching was a part of it, but
mhm.
like how did you set sail into the sort of like how I'm going to work on my monologues?
Oh man, I think that each piece was different to start with. You know, my approach to the classical pieces were a bit different than the contemporary. I think I'll start with the classical, just because I think talking through my process is a bit more straightforward. Because I was coming from relatively green experience in Shakespeare, I would say that the online course that you guys provide in terms of scansion, how to really break down the material was really helpful. Um,
That's led by Gary Logan.
yes, that's led by the wonderful Gary Logan, who we also coached with, and I had a great time with, truly. Um, I think that, I mean, I really felt like y'all held my hand in walking through that material. Um, in a way that I felt as if finishing audition season, could really not as an expert by any means, but I felt comfortable tackling that kind of material. Whereas going into it, I really felt like, where do I even begin? You know, I just,
We all feel that in the beginning.
where do I even begin? I
There's
mean,
so much.
there's so much.
And we all launch ourselves into it inevitably in some wrong direction. As like I was just throwing myself like, okay, screw the language. Let me just be the entertaining, charismatic version of myself. And like I just, I had to learn how to be like, okay, pull back from that instinct,
Hmm.
pay attention to what the text is offering, all these funny things that we do, but there is so much there. It's a lot. You got to work on it a little bit harder, I think, than contemporary material. Um,
Sure.
just because there's some legwork.
For sure, but I would also say that working on the classical pieces really helped me in my contemporary stuff because I realized how much I was taking for granted. You know, just
Interesting.
because the text is, just because the text makes sense to you in the English language in the contemporary pieces, uh, I think with the classical work, I really had to work to connect my emotional life to the things that I was saying rather than just being like a talking head. And I think
Right.
that that translated over to my contemporary pieces as well. Of like, I can't take for granted what I'm saying here. I really need to make sure that they're connected to a place that comes from deep within me.
Nice.
Yeah.
That's clutch. Yeah, we do say that, but oftentimes it's not like elaborated on like you just did so beautifully. We say that if you really dive into Shakespeare and it's a great vehicle for your development as an artist, but and it'll affect all of your work if you're feeling comfortable with, that heightened language. But this is exactly why, because the Shakespeare demands so much of your physical instrument, your emotional instrument, the integration of the mind, body, and voice, and the authenticity and your bold choices. It demands everything. It can handle your biggest, you know, self and your big imagination. Why can't the contemporary be also a vessel for strong, specific choices, you know, and that's what you're kind of saying, like you were challenged to do in your contemporary material, which I love. And so was there like one thing, I know you've already mentioned a few tips and tools that helped you with Shakespeare. Was there like one in particular, or maybe one note in a coaching session from Gary that like really unlocked Shakespeare for you, or something that, you know, is just a default for you now that maybe wasn't a year ago in terms of how to approach it, how to play it?
Hmm. Um,
Maybe in,
I don't know if I don't remember a specific moment per se, but I think just coming from relatively green experience, I I thought that Shakespeare meant like, oh, for the rings of, you know what I mean?
totally, totally. Me too.
And it's really not. I mean, you're still a human being at the end of the day, right? And so all of those impulses are really, they're really trying to make use of you as the actor and the artist, as opposed to your idea of like what a Shakespearean actor or play should look like. Um, I'm doing this because that's what I thought it looked like, and
Yeah, we all have our version of what classical acting should be.
yeah, I don't know if that was necessarily in like, I don't remember the specific moment that clicked for me, but I would say that that was a game changer for me, with the experience that I had within
Yeah.
classical text. Yeah.
Yeah. Yep, yep, yep. Very cool. So now to shift to the contemporary, you're working on those. What was your process there? How did you feel like those blossomed?
hmm I think I would say for all of the pieces, my process was okay. I'm going to do what I can to get the piece on its feet. Whether that means breaking down the text or uh, analyzing the play as a whole, getting clear on my intentions, and the character's intentions. But what I found especially helpful with the coaching, for example, I because I come from the classical music world, I think that an area of my acting that I really try to work on is the not knowing of it all,
Mm,
and
right,
to live in like, I'm not pressing play on a rehearsal that I've already had, but rather to
right.
keep it fresh and to keep exploring and discovering. And it may be a lifelong thing for me, but I would say that the coaching, being able to put it on its feet in front of different people and have them um, throw things at you that you wouldn't have been able to come to on your own, and to just play and explore that way was really, really helpful, um, and
It,
added so many different colors, to the work.
yeah, yeah, and it helps you explore like what's possible, you
Totally.
know? I I think it's very common and very easy for a lot of us if you're developing to like feel something good and then just want to lock it down.
Yeah.
You know, be like, okay, I like that. And now you just try to repeat, 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 when really that's like antithetical to art.
Yes.
And
Yes.
it's hard to just actually stay present and live through an experience anew.
Yes. Yeah.
Our Juilliard teachers called it living in the unknown. Like,
Right.
you know,
And
you're not living in the unknown, right? I remember going through an exercise at school where I have to enter a room and like something was on the floor that I didn't expect, and my character like freaks out.
yeah.
Entered the room, and my teacher was like, you know, you're not living in the unknown. You already know what to expect. You need to
Right.
live in the unknown. Like it needs to be something you discover in the moment. And it was hard.
I mean, even just that phrase, like you need to live in the unknown. That's scary,
It's
That's
scary.
scary stuff.
We don't do that in
Under
real
a dog.
life. Like, well, I
Exactly.
mean, inherently, we don't know what's going to happen in real life. So it's just, we live literally don't know. But we want to protect ourselves,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And
Right.
that's why actors are brave. That's why
Very true.
actors are viewed as courageous because you're willing to live through something or say something, do something, whatever that character is going through that we may not be willing to do, you know. So you get to play more with that now for 4 years.
Yes, I do.
Have fun.
I'm no, I truly am so stoked, and I think that like I do think that my best work as well, and the work that I admire most in other actors is like, oh, this person doesn't know, like they are just so in the moment and don't know what they're about to do. Um, I find it the most fascinating stuff.
Hmm.
Yeah.
Another thing that was kind of said to us at Juilliard was see and be seen. Meaning, like, if you're worried about controlling how the scene's going to go, you're not
Mhm.
actually seeing. And if you can't see out of your eyes, people cannot see you.
Hmm.
See and be seen. The obviously the goal of I'm getting a little preachy here, so we'll get back on track. But like the goal of good acting is to be able to tell a compelling story and move an audience,
Hmm.
right? You don't know necessarily how you're going to move each individual out there, but have an emotional impact. Well, in order to do that, you need to be able to be seen. And sometimes our tendency, like especially if you have a classical music background where you need to hit the notes, or if you have a classical singing background where like there's a lot of technical prowess you need to have to execute a correct song, you can get into the acting idea of like, I'm just going to control how it's going to go. And
Exactly.
yeah, you're not necessarily being able to be seen or felt.
Hmm.
And yeah, like you said, it's a task to learn how to take the control hat off, put the other hat on, which is like, let's just see how this goes,
Right.
But you also can't do that confidently unless you've done the work.
Exactly.
You can't
Yeah.
just be flying by the seat of your pants and making random choices, right?
No, that's not going to go well. You need to have I kept hearing throughout my preparation process, like do all of the work and then, in the room just be prepared to let it all go. And I think that that's very, very true. So,
So let's hear how it went.
yeah.
I don't want all shiny good times unless it really was, but like I'm sure there were moments. So like let's hear all the nuances. You're going into the first initial audition. This is the first time you're auditioning for MFAs, right?
Yes.
First
Yes.
time. You only got two schools.
Yeah.
Which one did you do first? How did it feel? Let's talk mostly about Juilliard, but like how did it feel going into the first room? Where did you audition? What happened?
Oh man. Um I love telling this story because I've told it a bunch to my friends as well, and I just think it's so funny. But I auditioned at Juilliard first, in New York. Okay, and I knew that the day was coming because well I'd been preparing for a few months at that point, and finally the day was here. So I wake up, I'm like, okay, today's the day. Like I'm the main character. Let's go. And I commute over to Lincoln Center. Right, I'm arriving like 15 minutes early before I'm called, just to make sure like I'm in a calm state. I'm not stressed out about some kind of subway work or anything like that. And as I'm walking towards the door, I see all of these other young people starting to converge as well. Right, and I open it up and I realize like, oh, the line to check in goes around the corner.
Oh,
And I'm like, I remember being in the line and starting to laugh, like just laughing to myself of like, man, I am so not the main character. This is crazy.
those New York auditions is a lot of people.
It was so many people. But we check in and it's, I mean, this is day one of, like 9, I think, that they do in New York before they go off to Chicago and San Francisco. So I was like, wow, I am just, we're gonna we're gonna see what happens. I've done the work and there's nothing else I can do. But it was really intimidating of like, I mean, imagine it was my first time auditioning for a drama school, period, not just an MFA program. But suddenly you're in the room with 150 to 200 other actors from New York, who have also gotten to this point and are here to share. Um, And I was like, okay, like it's time. I mean, this is what I asked for, you know. And in the first round, they divide you up into smaller groups so that the faculty can really get a wide sort of survey of the students all at once, right? And I remember getting divided into my group, and they were like, "Oh, okay, Matthew. All right, let's see. Oh, you're up second in the morning group." And so immediately I was like, "Oh, like I'm going up into the
It's
room.
game time.
It's game time. I just got here and I'm going."
Now, do they do the warm up? This is kind of
Yes,
unique about Juilliard. Yeah.
yes, they did do the warm up. They did a
Group.
warm up with everyone in the room, and I was really grateful for that. Thank you for bringing that up. But
But then they kind of separate you into like sections,
exactly,
and then what essentially you're going to do is go one on. You're going to go into the room individually.
yes.
So you were told you were second.
I was told I was second in my section, and I was like, okay, you know, it's game time. But looking back, I'm honestly grateful that it worked out that way because I didn't have much time to like freak myself out. You know what I mean? I
Right.
just I didn't have the time for it, and so suddenly I was going up to the room. Uh, I walked in and I auditioned for Evan Yanulis, the head of the program, and I shared my pieces. And I thought I would be more nervous than I was, but I really felt like I don't know why, whether it was the warm up or I was making small talk with the guy who was in front of me, who was going first, you know, and
Mm-hmm.
it just felt like we were both ready. We were both ready for this moment and whatever it was going to throw at us. So I really felt pretty calm going into that initial audition. Yeah.
Do you think that helped? Do you think that helped like you do your best work? Were you
Yes,
work?
for sure. For
Yeah.
me, for me personally, and my instrument, I know that that helps. If I'm if my nerves are in a bunch and I'm trying to prove myself of like, look how good I am, that's when it's the worst. But I think for whatever reason, I was just really, you know, steady. I told myself like, there's nothing else that you could have done in your preparation. You know, you've worked hard over these past few months, and now it's just time to trust that and share. So,
Yeah, that's a beautiful way to speak to yourself on that game day where it's like, okay, like you're not putting pressure on yourself to like do a little bit more or whatever. Like you really put in the work and now it's time to give the gift. We talk so much about these auditions as being like, okay, here's how I did. I think my performance went well, or I don't think my performance went well. But there's also like little interactions on the fringes of the work, right? Hello, how are you? What pieces are you sharing today? And then also after the work, like maybe they ask you to do a third piece, or maybe they, right?
mm,
How did you feel that you showed up as the genuine Matthew? But
mm,
outside of the work you shared, where you're playing a character, but like
right.
you feel like you were genuinely you. How did the interactions go just on the fringes of the work?
Yeah, I think I'm glad you're bringing this up because I felt as if I was really intentional about it too. I know that I think that your energy in the room, uh, they feel it the moment you walk in the door,
Yeah.
you know? And so I think that I really wanted to stay. I walked into that room with an openness and a readiness to work. And I would say, I mean, I wasn't forcing any of these feelings. They were just what was really happening for me and a gratitude to be there. Thinking about my own acting journey of like, you know, I wasn't, I studied something completely different in college. I took a leap of faith and moved out here to New York to do this thing. And now I'm at a point in my journey where I'm auditioning for Juilliard. Like, how great of a day is today? Um, and I think that that energy definitely seeped into my audition. On the fringes, on the latter fringe of it, um, you mean like when the pieces are finished, right?
Yeah.
It was just kind of like um, you know, I would say again, like an energy of like, thank you for giving me for allowing me to share my work with you. And whatever happens, happens, and now it's not in my control anymore. So
Yeah, and that's great. That's what's going through your head. Was there anything she said after the work? Or was it more like, all right, thanks, Matthew. First round done. Bye.
Um, my first round, I shared two of my pieces, and then they asked for a third, and then it was okay, thank you very much, and that was kind of it. Yeah.
Right. Usually that first round is rather quick. And I'm not
Yes.
just talking about for Juilliard, right? For any school, like they obviously have to see a lot of people. So
Right.
just want to get a flavor of the work, see if there's some chops there or whatever. Um, and so what happened afterwards? You walked out of the room.
I mean, I was in the morning group and second on the list. So after that, I was just like, it's whatever happens now is no longer in my control. So like
How'd you feel? How'd you feel it went?
I felt good. I
Okay,
felt
good.
really good. Just because I felt proud of myself for being able to stay so grounded in my body, because it's something that I've been working on as an actor, and I felt as if I was really able to connect to that in the room. And so I walked away feeling like, okay, you know, I did my thing, and if they didn't, however they feel about it is no longer my business.
Yeah. How did you choose the two pieces? Right, which two pieces did you do, and how did you decide?
I did. I think I did. I think I did Italian American Reconciliation, John Patrick Shanley, and I also did Henry V, Henry V by William Shakespeare. And then they
Nice,
asked for my third, which was one of the Romeo monologues. Yeah.
nice. And why didn't you do Romeo first instead of Henry V? Or how did you know you were always going to do Italian and Henry? Or did you just kind
Um,
of feel it out?
I kind of felt it out. I think the day before, I was pretty confident of like those two would probably be the ones in that moment, at least, that I felt the most connected to and really put a strong foot forward, um, of what my work is about. But I also knew that like, hey, if 5 minutes before I decide like, no, I want to do the Romeo, like that would have been fine too. Yeah.
Nice. Definitely a good mindset. Like be present, but also trust your gut, you know?
Mm-hmm.
Okay, so when did you find out you got to the next round? What was that like?
You mean the first callback? Yeah.
Yep.
Um, yeah. I mean, I walked away from my audition and basically just pulled out a book and tried to make a bit of small talk with some of the other auditionees. And
You
then
hung out in the building.
I hung out in the building, yeah, because I needed to wait for the callback list to be posted.
Hmm.
Um, I was just reading a book, like trying not to. I was actually very calm about it, just because I knew that it was no longer in my control. Um, and then at some point, Kathy Hood comes out and says, we have the list of the first round
Callbacks. Yep.
callbacks, auditionees that we'd like to see. And so, thank you to everyone for sharing your work with us today. Um, if you're called back into the room, you'll be coming up like immediately, essentially. And so I was there. There's this really big room at Juilliard where all of us were situated, and I was on the second floor. Okay, and the callback list was at the bottom. Um, so like I come down the stairs, everyone's like crowding around the list looking for their name, but I just I remember like closing my eyes and saying a little prayer of like, or even like an affirmation to myself of like, okay, no matter what happens, I'm gonna be okay because I've done the work and this it's all I could do. And I walk over and I see my name. I'm like, let's go, let's go. I mean, truly, like even
How
just,
many names were on there?
oh man.
Because it's what, 80 or more people who are auditioning.
Yeah,
Sometimes there's zero names on the callback list.
I honestly don't remember because I saw mine and I was like, we're good. We're good.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You know
And
what
we
I'm
were,
hearing? You've got this really great like ownership mentality over the whole process. And I hope that people are listening are hearing that where it's like, you know, not in a defensive way, like Juilliard can't tell me if I'm a good actor or not, but like genuinely, I've done what I could do. I put myself out there genuinely.
right.
I'm gonna be okay. I'm gonna still be able to go on my journey if my name's on this list or not.
Yeah.
You know, there's some emotional maturity there, I think, and it's really awesome. Some people kind of put themselves out there a little bit too like the school has the ability to tell me whether or not I'm talented or not. The
Hmm.
school has the ability to tell me whether or not I should be an actor or not, right? You
Yeah.
don't want to put yourself in that type of mindset. Um, but it's still a big moment. I can still feel that you're also still putting yourself vulnerably in a position of like because a lot of people just don't even audition for Juilliard. They don't want to deal with the heartbreak. They, you know, or Yale or any drama school. Like I don't even want to because I don't want to set myself up for heartbreak.
Right.
Whereas you're also willing to be courageous and put your work out there. That's also important.
Everyone who showed up was really, really courageous. You know, I mean,
Yeah,
that is, you miss 100% of the shots you don't take. And so like,
exactly.
I mean, just to be able to show up and share your work in the room and put yourself in that position of vulnerability, like you were saying, like I really respected um, really everyone in that cycle. So
So you go into the room. What happens at callbacks?
at callbacks, there were a few more teachers to see the work, and they asked for my two original pieces again. So Italian American Reconciliation and Henry V, and gave me a couple of adjustments to work with. One of the ones that really stick out in my mind, I think I did my my Shanley, and as we were talking afterwards about a possible adjustment, one of the uh, one of the faculty members was like, "Can you speak like you are now, like on your voice?" And I realized that in in my performance, and I know this about myself as an actor, sometimes I get a little like I don't know what it is, but there's a breathiness because I feel like I'm performing, you know.
Right,
And I wasn't really settling into what I know is there and how I'm speaking now, for example.
right.
Um, so that was really cool, and I
That's a
think
cool adjustment.
yeah, generally it was just I went in being curious about like what are they going to throw my way, and wanting to play with that. So
And so you ran it through exploring that.
yes, and I also for the Henry V, I can't quite remember what the adjustment was, but it was also a similar thing. Yeah.
Cool. So they spend a little more time with you. There's more faculty there, but ultimately you're just kind of continuing to play with the work.
Yes.
They worked with your two pieces that you brought in initially. And was that about it for the callbacks that
Uh,
day?
for the
Right.
morning. So basically, because I was in the morning group and I was called back to the first round, like so they were called like end of morning callbacks.
Mm-hmm.
I had to wait through the afternoon group.
Mm-hmm.
Um, and for and so what they do is like they take the end of morning callback people and the end of afternoon callback people, and then have like a final sort of end of day callback for who they'd like to see again.
Mm-hmm.
So I waited through the afternoon. Once again, they came with the list of like who
Did
they'd
you
like.
get pizza? Did you get lunch? Are you
Oh yes, yes,
okay?
yes.
Good.
I after the end of morning callback, I mean, before then, I really couldn't stomach anything because I felt like it was just going to come right back up, maybe. Um, but I took myself out to lunch, just tried to like, stay cool. Um, and then I think I just read a book and talked to some of the people in the room for the rest of the afternoon before getting called back at the end of the day. Yeah.
So you had to go back to find out if your name was on that list.
Yes. Yes.
Same story in
Same
terms
story and being like,
of
I mean, I really felt as if this sound wild to say, but even at the very beginning of like making that first round callback, I felt as if I were sent home after that, I would have been like, okay, I do have something here, I'm not it was just such an affirmation.
exactly. It feels good to be validated. And also you put in a lot of work, even though if you would not have if you would have gotten rejected in the first round, no callback, you still would have felt like I grew as an actor. I can keep going, but
Absolutely.
it does put a little insecurity in your mind, or it does put a little bit like, okay, do I have to work harder? Than. But yeah, it feels validating to just get any type of response from that. And here
Yes.
you are getting an end of day callback now. Now you're doing end of day stuff. Are they doing group stuff now in the end of day? Is it
Um,
still just you and the faculty only?
it was just us in the faculty, I believe.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, it was just us in the faculty. It
Save
was
that group
more
stuff, I think.
faculty.
Right.
It was more faculty, but yeah, we didn't do any sort of group stuff until callback weekend. And then, yeah, it was kind of I once again brought back the two pieces and we had a bit more time at the end of day to play with them,
Hmm.
and showcase the work. I do remember how many were at the end of day callback. I believe it was 12 of us
Okay.
from the 150 to 200 or whatever we started with at the
Yeah.
morning. Um, and then from there, we had interviews, um, and then yeah, I
What
went.
was the interview like? Were they asking you kind of, if you're willing to share, that's great. Like, but were the questions like more personal? Were they more artistic? Was it a mix? Did they have you do anything? Like they had me cold read something. I don't know if they
Oh,
still do that at all, but like,
interesting.
what was the nature? And everybody's personal. Like they can kind of treat an interview however they feel would be useful for that individual. But like,
Yeah,
what was it? What was it like for you?
I think I'm trying to remember the specifics because it has been a couple months, but I think for me, well, first of all, the room that they interview you in is it's really like cozy and warm feeling, and
Is
they
this upstairs?
no, I believe it was in. Oh, it was upstairs.
Yeah,
Yes,
yeah, yeah.
you're right. You're right. Um, I think that maybe I don't know why necessarily. Maybe that's the only space that worked out, or maybe they understand that it can be an intimidating thing to be seated across from like 5 or 6 faculty members who, are asking you these questions and really want to put you at ease, right? But I felt very cared for, and I felt as if I could show up fully and authentically because of it. And some of the stuff they asked, I think in my specific case, just because I was coming from all of these other different life experiences as well, we did talk a lot about uh, those experiences, and how my journey to acting came to be. Why is it that you want to pursue graduate school now? That kind of thing.
Hmm.
Um, Less artistic for me.
Yeah, more so like what has brought you to this point.
What has brought you to this point? Where do you see yourself going? You know,
Hmm.
and why is graduate school the right next step for you?
Yeah, kind of meeting you at your moment, kind of meeting
Right.
you here, like, okay, getting a context, a snapshot of Matthew's, yeah, present day.
Which I think makes sense given my background. I think they were just trying to like synthesize all of this information of, okay, we've seen the work now, we have your resume on hand, like where do you see yourself going, and wanting to hear that from me directly.
Did you say anything that was like, wow, I can't believe I said that, or good or bad? Like, did you feel just kind of like you were talking to a friend and it was easy? I was, yeah, go ahead.
I I think one of the first things I said, uh and I said it because it was true. It was basically what I just told you of like, I think I walked in, I was like, wow, I'm just so excited to be here. Like, honestly, if you guys sent me home at the beginning of the day, like after that first round callback, I would have been more than happy. And I don't know why I said that because it was, you know, that, I just felt so silly afterwards, but it felt true to me in the moment.
Yeah,
Um,
exactly. No, I think most of the people who get into any of these top schools, there's something that they say that they feel or that they do that just feels like, I can't believe I did that,
yeah,
you
totally.
know? But that's you being, out there. They don't want someone who's overly controlling or, they're the way that they're showing up. They just want you to be, yeah. And I'm sure there's some funny stories that those faculty have. Of
Totally.
what people have said and done. But great. So then after the interview, it's
Mhm.
evening time. You've done all the work, right? Like you going home now, and you live with that day's experience. How did that feel?
Man, it was a long day, you know, and I remember saying to myself, actually, like walking back into the door of my apartment, like I walked away from that experience as a changed actor, an artist. I approached the entire process kind of like what we were saying at the beginning of today's session of, this was just a point in the journey. It's not the end goal, right?
Right.
Um, so I went into it with that headspace, but still to receive that kind of end of day callback, like recognition from an institution like Juilliard, just gave me so much confidence. And I think that it really felt as if all of my hard work had paid off.
Hmm.
uh, I knew that no matter what happened from there on out, whether or not I would be invited back to Callback Weekend or anything like that, I could live with the experience of that day and know that, like, wow, I really do. I'm not imagining things. I really do have something here, and I'm going to work at it, no matter what happens.
Absolutely. Yeah, that makes sense. And so now you're waiting. You don't know what's going to happen with Callback Weekend. How did you get notified about Callback Weekend, and how do you feel like Callback Weekend went? And I'm respectful of our time here. I want to be able to
Hmm.
wrap it up sort of soon, but like I want to jump into Callback Weekend. How did you feel like that went? Did you feel like you were able to show up genuinely? Did you still feel that pressure of like I'm auditioning? Was it a healthy mix?
Um, Callback Weekend was interesting. The first day they bring you out to a play, and it's orientation. You get to know the other students. The second day is when you share your pieces. And I think going into that experience, I was a lot more nervous than I was in the initial audition, because it
Why is
felt as
that?
if, I think because it felt as if like, oh, this is what decides it, And I guess the first audition also decides it, but like for whatever reason,
You're just deeper. Yeah.
you're deeper into the process, and here's the my chance to prove myself or whatever. And so I don't think that my initial session actually went well, because I remember actually shaking, you know,
Hmm.
going into that room, and I don't feel as if I was really able to connect or stay grounded in the way that I know I can. Um, Once that was over, I was like, well, there's nothing else I can do, so I might as well just really enjoy the rest of this weekend. Learn as much as possible from these classes that they're offering, and get to know the other students. And then on Sunday, they call back some people uh, to see some additional work. It doesn't mean anything.
Right. It's not like an official callback. It's just, yeah, more
Uh,
time.
it's just more time to see a bit more of your work. And so when I was called back into the room, I felt like much more grounded. I think whether it was because I had already spent a few days in callbacks, I was more familiar with the students and the space, but I really felt as if I was able to be flexible and play and explore. So
Did
uh,
they throw anything at you there that was particularly, you know, earth shattering or that you went through in your work that you felt was like, wow, the work, I discovered something in my own work there.
yeah, I would say a couple things. I was doing my in the previous rounds, I was doing my Henry V piece from a chair because in the scene he's sitting on his throne and delivering something to like the French ambassador or whatever. And in that callback session, they were like they removed the chair and they said, "Okay, now we're gonna explore the piece with no chair." And so suddenly I was in open space, and I think that opened me up in a lot of ways. Of I don't know. There's something about being in a chair and constricted,
Hmm.
whereas, and it also feels safer in a way.
Hmm.
And standing up, working in open space, not knowing what was going to happen, I would say really opened me up in a certain way. And also, uh, there was an adjustment of like really finding a power in Henry V. I mean, he is a war commander in chief, um, that I felt like I was able to really connect to in that
Cool.
additional session. Yeah.
Very cool. So you're working.
I was working. I was working. And
You're having fun.
I felt so much better. I was like, oh, thank God. Um, that I was able to get back in the room. But
How did it wrap up? You feel like you ended Callback Weekend on a good note? Anything else that happened of note?
um I would say the um before the additional session, so on Saturday they have like the six classes or whatever. And at that point, I knew that although I didn't feel great about my initial work, I was like, okay, well, it's out of my control now, so I might as well just, you know, uh, go
Put it
full
all out
force
there.
here, put it
Yeah.
all out there. And I ended with my last class was physical comedy, and at some point we were doing these like improv songs in groups and stuff, and some of the stuff that I was doing I was like, man, I cannot believe, but hey, like we are I'm just putting it all out there because it's no longer in my control. And
It's so easy to hold back, right?
yeah,
So easy.
yeah, yeah, yeah.
But obviously the invitation is to see what happens.
Yes.
See, what you've got in there. Um, did you feel like, okay, this is the type of day I want to have for 4 years in a row?
Yes, I did.
You were feeling good about like what it felt like.
Yes, I know that well, I just knew going back as a master's student, like I am willingly choosing to go back to school, and I know that this training is all consuming. But if I'm about to dedicate 3 or 4 years of my life to something like this, I want it to be all consuming.
Hmm. Hmm.
And I want to really feel as if I'm pushed to my limits.
Hmm.
Um,
Such a
so,
good mindset. Yeah.
so,
That's the nature of training, like
right.
you're asking to be pushed. You're asking to expand.
Yeah. I may be eating my words a few months from now.
Oh, you will. Don't worry. Maybe not in the first year, okay,
Okay.
my friend, but
Okay.
you've got my number. Just in
Okay.
case you need to have a talk at some point.
Okay. I see.
There will be
Um,
times. There will be times. I've got some stories. I found myself to be out of character at certain times, yelling at faculty members, just like, what am I doing? Like, I'm freaking stressed. But
Yeah.
hey, not to say that that's what will happen to you at all, but I certainly did never think that would happen to me. But
Okay.
you really try, you are asked to do things that you're not comfortable with. You inherently are saying yes to that, to being challenged at that level, and then
Hmm.
you try and you hit your head against the wall and you break through sometimes, and then you see other people also hitting their head against the wall and breaking through, and things are so beautiful. But at the same time you can sense the frustration, right?
Hmm.
It's training, man. I'm sorry to overwhelm you.
No, no, no. It's not overwhelming. I think that when that inevitably happens, and it's going to happen, I just have to come back to this place of like, this is what I wanted, going in.
You
So
can watch this video again and feel all the good
it's true.
feelings.
That's true. Yeah.
Be like, oh man, there was a time when I didn't know if I would get in here,
Yes.
right?
Exactly.
um So let's hear about the big moment, right? You leave callback weekend. You've got this waiting period. Sometimes it's longer, sometimes it's shorter.
Hmm.
How did it go for you, and what happened when you found out that you were officially admitted?
Oh man, I in my audition preparation, I had honestly, I mean, it's kind of surreal talking to you like this right now because I had devoured so many of the videos on how to get into drama school. Um, and so I knew going into that waiting period that, like, okay, if I get in at some point, I'm going to get a call from Kathy Hood and Evan Yanulis. Um, and first day goes by, second day goes by, third day goes by, and at this point I'm like, oh man, maybe it's not happening for me. um, and then I think it was on the fourth day, I was sitting on this couch, I think, doing work, sending emails, and suddenly I'm getting a call from a 212, like, New York area code number, and I'm like, no way. And I slide it open. I'm like, hello? And and Kathy Hood is like, hi Matthew, it's Kathy Hood here. Just here with the drama division. I've got Evan with me, and I just go, oh wait, no, I remember now. She's like, how are you? And I go, oh my god. And they just started laughing their asses off because it was like the most honest reaction that I could give. But
That is hilarious.
yeah, yeah, yeah. It was. I just didn't respond to their question at all. It was just like, oh my god. Yeah, yeah. It was
They
awesome.
basically were like, yeah, pretty much.
Huh?
They were basically like, yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, I think they really thought my reaction was funny, and then we launched into the whole like, congratulations. We'd really like to welcome you to Group 58. And then I called my best friends and my family, and it was really, really just something I'll carry with me for the rest of my life, I think.
That's amazing. Yeah. It's crazy what we do like in that moment. I mean, it's obviously a significant emotional event in your life. Like you said, you'll remember it forever. But like what do you do after that? Right? You call your family, you call your friends. It's nice to hear their voices and hear their support. I remember for whatever reason, I went out and bought like 25 bean and cheese tacos and gave them to all my friends.
You just felt generous,
I don't know. I guess so. And on my way to I was clearly like calling mom and dad and everybody, but like, I just felt like I had to come back when I was visiting my friends and be like, here's a bag of 25 bean and cheese tacos. Just do crazy things.
Yeah, man.
It's a great moment.
Oh yeah.
I'm so happy for you. And you're on the same couch.
I'm on the same couch.
Well, congratulations, Matthew.
Thank you so much.
You are so welcome. You know, you put in the work. It was you, right? You're the one on the subway. You're the one in the room. You're the one showing up to sessions. You're the one really putting yourself out there for scene study classes and coaching and everything. We were happy to be inviting you into our coaching and helping you play so that your instrument was warmed up as much as it could have been. And then we all just don't know what's going to happen. You don't know what's going to happen. We don't know what's going to happen. But it was a pleasure to work with you.
Thank you so much.
Yeah, man.
Seriously, I'm
Yeah.
really, really grateful.
You know, there's people who are listening who are looking at potentially auditioning for drama school, looking at potentially coaching with us, obviously,
Mhm.
more so about the journey, not necessarily the coaching with us or anything, but the journey for you and what you would say to them based on your experience. Like, what would be something to keep in mind, big picture, as they approach their auditions?
Mm, honestly, I think what I mentioned at the beginning of today, of like, this is just a point along the journey, you know. Um, this is just a point along the journey. There are many, many ways to become an actor, and it's not necessarily through one of these programs. There are plenty of great actors actually that don't have a lick of training like this, and so I would say uh, if graduate school is something you do want to pursue, like do your work, prepare as much as possible, and then let it all go in the room. But also just have this big picture, have the big picture in mind of like, um, there's only so much within your control, you know, and what beyond that is just part of something bigger than all of us, and we won't know what that plan is. But
Yeah.
if your goal is to become the best artist you can be, getting in or not getting into drama school, I don't think should be what determines whether or not you're going to pursue this life, you know?
Mm-hmm.
So,
Well said. Well said. Beautiful, man. Well, thank you for sharing. You know, everything you said was so just unique to you and honest, and I loved hearing it. I'm sure it's very valuable to the listeners. So thank you again for sharing, and I'll see you soon.
thanks so much, Anthony.
All right, Matthew. We'll talk later.
Ah,
Okay, bye.
yeah.